Chapter 28, The Sigma's Art of Time, Commanding the River. Time is the first battlefield and the last. It is the invisible current in which every life is carried, the one force that cannot be bribed, halted, or deceived. You can conquer armies, accumulate wealth, build empires, and win fame, but the river of time runs beneath it all, eroding every monument, carrying away every victory. To ignore it is to be destroyed by it. To command it, not in ownership, for none can own time, but in mastery of how you move with it, is the highest discipline of the Sigma. Sun Tzu wrote, "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." Timing is not a matter of instinct alone, it is strategy rooted in rhythm. To know when, not just how, is the essence of victory. The Sigma does not seek to race time, he seeks to harmonize with it. He understands what Musasha wrote in the Book of Five Rings, timing is the thing. From the outset you must know the timing of everything. In combat, this meant striking the instant an enemy shifted balance. In life, it means sensing when to advance, when to pause, when to endure, when to vanish, and when to appear. Most people live as if time is infinite, scattering their hours like confetti, selling their days cheaply for approval or distraction. The Sigma treats each hour as terrain, each day as a campaign. He knows that while the river flows endlessly, his vessel upon it is finite. His discipline is command of the current while it is his to steer. Sun Tzu taught that speed can be as decisive as patience, speed is the essence of war. Take advantage of the enemy's unpreparedness. But speed divorced from timing is wasted. To rush when the terrain is wrong, when allies are absent, when resources are depleted, that is not speed, that is suicide. The Sigma sees how modern life glorifies urgency, the cult of being busy, the addiction to immediacy. Emails, messages, trends, all scream for instant reaction. But Sun Tzu also warned, if he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will be weak everywhere. The Sigma knows that to answer every demand is to dissolve. He refuses. His strength comes from selective acceleration, striking swiftly only when the terrain aligns, the enemy exposes, the river bends in his favor. This is not laziness. It is supreme economy. Think of George Washington at Trenton. He did not strike the British constantly. He waited through winter's brutal attrition, enduring ridicule for inaction. But when Christmas night arrived, when his enemy was drunk and scattered, he crossed the Delaware. Timing made a ragged militia into victors over the greatest empire of the age. Sun Tzu would have nodded, he who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious. The Sigma studies this lesson. Waiting is not idleness when it conserves strength for the moment that multiplies impact. History is filled with victories of timing. Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon was not only an act of defiance but one of exquisite calculation. He chose the moment when the Senate was fractured, when Pompey was unready, when his legions were loyal. A step across a small stream became the opening of an empire because Caesar understood that time itself is a terrain to be read like hills and valleys. The Sigma does the same in his private campaigns. He launches ventures not at random but when competitors are distracted, when the market is soft, when the opportunity aligns with his reserves. He withdraws from engagements when the season is wrong, even if others mock his inaction. He knows ridicule is temporary, ruin is permanent. Modern life tempts with immediacy. Investment platforms promise instant returns, social media demands instant reaction, relationships collapse under the demand for instant validation. The Sigma resists. He lives in compound time. Like Warren Buffett, who has said, the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient, the Sigma knows that power accrues to those who can wait. Buffett's empire is not built on frenetic trading but on disciplined inaction punctuated by decisive action. He waits years, then deploys billions in days when chaos opens opportunities. Sun Tzu, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. Time is the superior force. You cannot stop it, but you can wait until it carries your enemy into a vulnerable bend of the river. Musashi emphasized rhythm in combat. You must study this well. In duels, he sometimes arrived late, disrupting opponents' rhythm. At other times, he pressed with relentless attacks, forcing them into desperation. The Sigma learns from this: command of time is not rigidity. It is rhythm applied to circumstance. In conversation, he knows when silence makes words heavier. In negotiation, he knows when to concede early to secure a later strike. In relationships, he knows that absence can deepen presence. Timing is not one tactic, it is the grand strategy that underlies all tactics. Time also reveals the danger of attrition. Sun Tzu warned, there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. Most modern people live in prolonged wars of attrition, endless arguments, endless busyness, endless consumption. They drain themselves without decisive gains. The Sigma withdraws. He refuses to fight time itself in unwinnable wars. He selects only decisive campaigns, preserving his firepower. This is why he does not chase every career ladder, every business fad, every social cause. He chooses few, but he commits deeply. To scatter is to dissolve, to concentrate is to endure. Consider Eisenhower before D-Day. The world saw a single morning of landings, but that morning was the culmination of years of timing, weather forecasts, supply build-up, deception operations. Had he struck too early, failure. Too late, failure. He waited for the narrow channel between storms, and in that channel, the tide of the war turned. The Sigma sees that his own life is no less dependent on such channels. To act when the moment is right is to multiply force tenfold. To act wrongly timed is to squander years. Time magnifies both wisdom and folly. But command of time also requires mastery of mortality. The Stoics reminded daily of death, memento mori. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." The Sigma does not delude himself with endless tomorrows. He knows the river is finite. This awareness sharpens his focus. It removes procrastination. He invests hours in what compounds: skill, knowledge, health, sovereignty. He withdraws from what dissolves: gossip, distraction, petty conflicts. Mortality makes him ruthless in allocation. Every wasted day is a battlefield lost forever. Sun Tzu again, the general who loses time in unnecessary marches will be exhausted before battle. The Sigma refuses unnecessary marches. In the digital age, time theft is systemic. Notifications, advertisements, algorithms, each is a raider attacking the fortress of attention. Most surrender. The Sigma defends. He treats his calendar as high ground. He fortifies mornings for creation, evenings for reflection. He refuses to be everywhere at once because, as Sun Tzu warned, that is weakness everywhere. His sovereignty of time is not abstract, it is daily architecture. He declines meetings that dilute, friendships that corrode, obligations that deplete. He chooses few but vital engagements, like a general conserving troops for decisive strikes. Yet time is not only something to defend. It is also a weapon to wield. Delay can be as destructive as attack. Sun Tzu advised, hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder, and crush him. The Sigma sometimes allows time to work against his adversaries. He does not interrupt their mistakes. He lets competitors rush, lets rivals overextend, lets enemies grow arrogant in apparent calm. Time becomes his ally. While they dissipate energy, he conserves. When the moment comes, he is fresh, they are spent. This is the art of patience weaponized. But beware, time is also a deceiver. It can lull into inertia. Waiting becomes endless hesitation, patience becomes paralysis. Sun Tzu warned against inaction. There are roads which must not be followed, positions which must not be contested. To know when not to move is wisdom, but to never move is death. The Sigma guards against this by defining triggers. He sets clear conditions: if X happens, I act. This prevents waiting from becoming avoidance. He designs readiness so that when the window opens, he does not blink. Musasha again, you win battles with the timing of the spirit. Timing requires spirit trained to act the instant the opening appears. Consider Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison, a lifetime. Yet he did not emerge embittered or broken. He emerged timed. He knew the regime was crumbling, international pressure mounting. His release was not only his freedom but his enemy's surrender. Time had been his ally, because he had used it to discipline himself, to prepare his spirit, to align his cause with inevitability. The Sigma reads this and sees that even confinement can be transformed if time is wielded with clarity. The river of time also teaches flow. You cannot freeze it, you can only direct it. The Sigma adapts like water. When blocked, he pools, gathering strength. When channeled, he surges. He does not rage at the current, he reads it, positions within it, and lets its force amplify his own. Sun Tzu wrote, "The formation of troops is like water. Water shapes its course according to the ground." The Sigma's formation in life is the same. He does not demand the river bend to him, he bends himself to ride its bends, striking where its flow accelerates him toward victory. In the end, command of time is command of self. To waste time is to waste self. To master time is to master destiny. The Sigma knows he cannot outlive the river, but he can choose how he sails it. He can drift, scattered, until wrecked on the rocks, or he can steer with discipline, reaching shores that seemed impossible. Sun Tzu's wisdom, Musasha's rhythm, Marcus's mortality, Buffett's patience, they all converge here. Power belongs to those who treat time not as background but as battlefield. The Sigma makes this battlefield his home. You and this lesson? Audit your time with the severity of a general mapping terrain. Where do you scatter troops across meaningless skirmishes? Withdraw them. Where do you march endlessly without gain? Halt. Where do you allow the enemy, distraction, vanity, urgency, to raid your camp? Fortify. Then define your decisive campaigns. Reserve your mornings for offense, your evenings for recovery, your life for compounding moves. Stop chasing every wave, position for the tides. Time is the river. You cannot dam it, but you can command your vessel upon it. Master this, and you do not merely live days, you shape campaigns. You become timeless, not in lifespan, but in legacy. The Sigma commands the river, and in doing so, commands himself. Chapter 29, The Sigma's Art of Adaptability, the Shape of Water, the Edge of Steel. Adaptability is not decoration. It is survival. It is also supremacy. The Sigma understands this better than most because his life, unlike the Alphas, is not a performance staged for applause, nor the Betas, a shelter erected for safety. His life is a campaign. And in campaigns, conditions change. Plans fracture. The world shifts. To persist unchanged is to perish. To adapt is to endure. To adapt well is to conquer. Sun Tzu's words are eternal here. Be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby you can be the director of the opponent's fate. The Sigma does not cling to rigid form. He chooses substance over shape. Like water, he molds to terrain, fills gaps, bypasses walls, erodes stone. Water is soft, yet destroys mountains. The Sigma studies this lesson until it is written in his bones. But he is not only water. He is also steel. Water flows and yields, steel cuts and endures. True adaptability is not spinelessness. It is not surrender to every current. It is the marriage of water and steel, fluid in movement, unyielding in essence. Water allows him to navigate chaos. Steel ensures he does not dissolve into it. Together they make him both elusive and decisive, patient and lethal. Musasha, the undefeated duelist, wrote, "In strategy it is important to be familiar with the particular weapons of your opponent, but not to be dependent on any one weapon yourself. Musashi carried 2 swords, but he was never wedded to a single technique. He adapted to terrain, opponent, timing. He became water and steel in combat. The Sigma takes this same creed into every battlefield of modern life, never chained to one tool, one method, one identity. He remains fluid, yet sharp. Consider Alexander the Great. His campaigns from Greece to India were victories of adaptation. Against the Persians, he extended his phalanx. Against war elephants, he used mobility. Against mountain tribes, he modified supply lines. His genius was not only courage but the ability to meet the unknown with improvisation. The Sigma learns here, genius is not the brilliance of one rigid plan, it is the flexibility to rewrite plans faster than enemies can comprehend. Adaptability begins with perception. Sun Tzu said, "Know the ground, know the weather, and your victory will be complete." Most men see only what they expect. The Sigma trains himself to see what is. This means stripping away assumptions, refusing illusions. Where others say, "It has always been done this way," he asks, "What is actually happening here? What does the terrain allow? What does the enemy conceal?" He gathers information not to confirm bias but to disrupt it. Adaptability also means learning faster than others. Darwin observed, "It is not the strongest that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most adaptable." The Sigma embodies this law. He learns relentlessly. He absorbs patterns, studies systems, reads widely, experiments quickly. He refuses to be locked by yesterday's success. He asks, "What changed? What must I change?" The Alpha brags of tradition, the Beta clings to comfort. The Sigma moves silently into the future while others defend the past. Take Genghis Khan. His empire was built not only on ferocity but on assimilation. He absorbed technologies, tactics, even religions from conquered peoples. He adapted cavalry formations depending on opponent terrain. He welcomed foreign engineers into his ranks. He adapted until adaptation itself became the empire's weapon. The Sigma reflects, strength comes not from purity but from flexibility. To adapt is to grow stronger by taking in what others reject. In modern life, adaptability is tested daily. Industries collapse. Technologies obsolete themselves. Economies shift. A man clinging to one identity, a job title, a social role, a fixed plan, finds himself stranded. The Sigma refuses this prison. He trains in multiple skills, cultivates multiple streams, keeps multiple identities ready. He knows that to bet everything on one form is to guarantee vulnerability. Instead, he builds resilience by building range. The Stoics echo this. Epictetus taught, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." This is adaptability stripped of ornament. Reality does not consult your preference. You can curse it, or you can mold to it. The Sigma chooses molding. He wastes no energy wishing conditions were otherwise. He asks only, "Given this, what is possible? Given this, how can I move?" He adapts, and so he advances. But adaptability does not mean compromise of principle. It is tactical, not moral. The Sigma adapts methods, never mission. He may shift routes, but the destination remains sovereign. This distinction is critical. The chameleon changes to survive, but it has no direction. The Sigma adapts to dominate, with mission intact. His steel is his unchanging core, his water is the changing form. Together they keep him whole. In negotiation, adaptability is decisive. Sun Tzu advised, "Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend, march swiftly to places where you are not expected." The Sigma adapts mid-conversation. He senses tone, adjusts tempo, shifts language. He reads silence, adjusts to ego. He can be stern or soft, expansive or reserved, depending on what advances his aim. This is not manipulation for vanity but adaptability for advantage. He adapts form to preserve essence. History again instructs. Washington at Trenton crossed the icy Delaware not out of bravado but adaptation. His army was fractured, morale low. A conventional engagement would have ended in ruin. So he shifted. He struck at Christmas, when no one expected, turning defeat into momentum. Adaptability transformed desperation into victory. The Sigma takes this to heart: adapt not only when comfortable but especially when cornered. Crisis is the crucible of creativity. In markets, adaptability is wealth. Warren Buffett's great strength is patience married with flexibility. He avoids frenzy, but when conditions shift, when crises crash prices, he adapts instantly, deploying capital while others freeze. He is water in waiting, steel in action. This is the Sigma's financial strategy: conserve when chaos rules, strike when clarity emerges. Adaptability creates compound advantage. In relationships, adaptability is strength without subjugation. The Sigma does not demand that others conform entirely to him. He adjusts, listens, calibrates. But he never dissolves. He is water enough to flow, steel enough to hold. This allows him to move across social terrains without losing identity. He adapts form, not essence. This balance keeps him sovereign while still connected. Adaptability must also be practiced in emotion. To freeze in one emotional state is death. Sun Tzu warned, if you are angry, show that you are not. If you are content, appear dissatisfied. The Sigma adapts emotional presentation to circumstance. Internally, he acknowledges emotions but does not let them dictate. Externally, he adapts expression to advantage. This is not deceit, it is discipline. He knows that rigid displays betray him. Adaptability preserves leverage. Modern battlefields, the digital world, demand adaptability above all. Algorithms shift, platforms rise and fall, audiences scatter. Those who build only on one channel perish when it closes. The Sigma builds redundancy. He is water, flowing into new platforms, new skills, new spaces. He is steel, refusing to depend on a single platform's favor. Adaptability in the digital age is sovereignty itself. But adaptability requires humility. To adapt, you must admit that your way is not always the way. Pride resists this. Pride clings to old methods. Pride insists the world is wrong. Sun Tzu cautioned, if in the midst of difficulties we are always ready to seize an advantage, we may extricate ourselves from misfortune. Readiness requires humility, to see that conditions changed, to accept that yesterday's strength is today's weakness. The Sigma embraces this humility, for it is the gateway to constant rebirth. Adaptability also requires speed. To adapt late is to adapt in vain. Musasha taught that timing is everything. To adapt slowly is to be predictable. To adapt quickly is to be untouchable. The Sigma trains this by small experiments. He tests, shifts, recalibrates. He is never static, always iterating. By the time others notice, he has already adapted again. The metaphor of water continues. Water adapts instantly. Pour it into a cup, it becomes the cup. Pour it into a riverbed, it becomes the river. But water is also patient. It can wait years to carve stone. This is the Sigma's paradox: adapt instantly in form, remain patient in mission. Immediate fluidity, eternal direction. This adaptability gives him invisibility. Sun Tzu said, be formless, like water. When you are invisible, you can act without opposition. To be unreadable is power. The Sigma cultivates this. He avoids excessive broadcasting. He reveals little of his next move. By the time others prepare for his last form, he has already changed. This makes him untouchable. Adaptability is not easy. It demands constant learning, ruthless self-honesty, relentless discipline. It is easier to cling to one method, one identity, one routine. But ease is weakness. The Sigma accepts the burden of change because he knows that to change well is to survive and to survive well is to rule. You and this lesson? Ask yourself, where have you become rigid? Where do you cling to a single form, a single identity, a single method? Identify it. Then pour water over it. How can you flow around it? How can you erode it? How can you adapt without losing your core? Adaptability is not chaos. It is mastery of change. Be water in your form, be steel in your essence. Move fluidly, remain sharp. If you do this, you cannot be trapped, you cannot be broken, and you cannot be stopped. Chapter 30, The Sigma's Art of Silence, Power in the Unspoken. Silence has always been misunderstood. The crowd mistakes it for emptiness. The noisy world labels it absence, weakness, or awkwardness. But the Sigma knows better. Silence is not void, silence is voltage. It is not retreat, it is range. It is the pause before the strike, the unseen reservoir that sustains endurance, the cloak under which all true power gathers. Sun Tzu cautioned generals, be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Silence here is not passivity but concealment, not weakness but the refusal to waste strength on needless disclosure. The Sigma internalizes this. He does not pour out his mind into the public square, does not broadcast every ambition, does not fill silence with noise. He lets silence accumulate pressure until it becomes indistinguishable from presence itself. The ancient masters understood what our distracted age forgets: speech is exposure. Each word reveals, discloses, uncovers. Musasha wrote in the Book of Five Rings, do nothing which is of no use. Excess speech is the first violation of that law. Words reveal thought patterns, betray insecurities, map out intentions. To the skilled opponent, words are intelligence. To the unskilled, they are confessions. The Sigma therefore speaks with austerity. His silence is not awkwardness but weaponized restraint. Silence, then, becomes a terrain of power. Just as Sun Tzu outlined 9 grounds upon which battles unfold, silence itself is a ground upon which contests of will are fought. In negotiation, silence unsettles. In conflict, silence intimidates. In persuasion, silence amplifies. Think of the interrogator who lets silence stretch until the suspect cracks. Think of the negotiator who names a figure, then folds arms and waits. Think of the warrior who stands unmoved, his silence louder than threats. The Sigma uses silence the way others use armies. Consider George Washington at the Constitutional Convention. He spoke little, sometimes going weeks without uttering more than a handful of sentences. Yet his silence carried more influence than the speeches of those who argued daily. Delegates projected weight into that silence, interpreting his very stillness as judgment. By refusing to waste his authority in constant speech, Washington multiplied it. His silence was not absence, it was gravitational field. The Sigma learns from this: the less often you speak, the more weight each word carries. Sun Tzu wrote, let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. Silence is the darkness that conceals the plan until it is too late to stop it. The Sigma does not publish every intention, does not debate his moves in public, does not invite commentary on embryonic ideas. He cultivates opacity. In a world where everyone performs their lives in open feeds, his silence is scandalous power. He moves like the night sky, vast, untraceable, infinite. And when he finally acts, it is lightning. Yet silence is not only a shield, it is also a lens. Noise clouds perception. Those who chatter cannot listen. Those who fill air with commentary cannot hear whispers of terrain. The Sigma uses silence to sharpen hearing. In a conversation, he speaks little, and in doing so, he hears much. Others rush to fill the silence, and in their rush they reveal themselves. Sun Tzu advised, know your enemy and know yourself, and you need not fear 100 battles. Silence is the tool by which the Sigma extracts this knowledge. By withholding, he learns. By pausing, he sees. This principle has been applied again and again in the great games of power. In diplomacy, the silent envoy unnerves the verbose. In war councils, The quiet commander absorbs everything while others dissipate energy in debate. In markets, the investor who withdraws from chatter avoids the traps of herd psychology. Warren Buffett again exemplifies this. His silence in times of market frenzy is discipline disguised as calm. While others explain, justify, or panic aloud, he waits. His silence is capital in reserve, ready to be deployed when frenzy burns itself out. Silence also guards sovereignty. Every word spoken to the wrong audience can be weaponized against you. Every confession, every complaint, every premature boast becomes data in someone else's strategy. The Sigma resists this. He does not rant online, does not over-explain decisions, does not narrate his inner struggles to anyone who will listen. He shares selectively, privately, rarely. In doing so, he denies others the raw material of manipulation. Sun Tzu's maxim applies again: he who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious. Silence is prudence embodied. But silence must not be confused with absence. The Sigma does not vanish into passivity. He commands silence the way a general commands troops, with discipline, with timing, with purpose. Musasha reminds us, perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye. Silence allows perception beyond surface noise. In silence, the Sigma perceives patterns others miss. He watches markets form bubbles, watches empires overextend, watches individuals reveal flaws. In the quiet, he is already charting the strike. Silence, therefore, is preparation disguised as stillness. History again affirms this. Think of Fabius Maximus, the Roman delayer, who met Hannibal not with rash engagements but with disciplined silence of maneuver. He shadowed, he observed, he refused battle. Rome mocked him as coward. But when Hannibal's army, stretched and starved, finally waned, it was Fabius' silence of avoidance that saved the Republic. Silence here was strategy, patience, positioning. The Sigma studies this not as history but as mirror. The refusal to act loudly is often the truest form of control. There is also silence as endurance. The prisoner who survives captivity is often the one who refuses to give words to his captors. Nelson Mandela embodied this. Though imprisoned for 27 years, his silence on certain matters became legendary. He would not allow them to extract from him what could later weaken his cause. When he finally spoke, his words held authority because silence had concentrated their force. The Sigma carries this into daily life. He saves his voice so that when it is used, it is unignorable. Modernity fears silence. Social media rewards constant speech. Platforms punish stillness with invisibility. Corporations valorize meetings, commentary, constant visibility. In such a world, silence is rebellion. But more than rebellion, it is positioning. By refusing to chatter, the Sigma does not disappear. He deepens. While others spend themselves in constant broadcast, he compounds his reserves. He knows the truth of Sun Tzu's dictum: in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. Silence is how you detect the opportunity hidden beneath noise. And silence is not only tactical, it is spiritual. The Sigma seeks inner stillness not as retreat but as power source. Stoics like Epictetus counseled, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." In silence, you hear not only others but yourself. You sense fear rising before it controls you. You detect ego swelling before it misleads you. You notice temptation forming before it traps you. Silence is therefore vigilance. It is not emptiness but guard duty. It is the soldier watching the walls at night while others sleep. Musasha trained with silence in combat. He often unnerved opponents not with bravado but with calm. No taunts, no wasted words, no flinches. Just silence. The opponent filled the void with imagination, with fear, with projection. That psychological load broke them before his blade struck. The Sigma practices this socially. In negotiations, in relationships, in conflict, his silence induces others to reveal, to speculate, to overstep. He wins without motion, because silence tilts the battlefield before movement begins. But silence also carries creative force. Many of history's greatest works emerged from seasons of silence. Beethoven, though deaf, composed in the silence of isolation. Monks preserved wisdom by withdrawing into quiet. Innovators disappeared for years, then returned with breakthroughs. The Sigma understands this rhythm. His silence is not unproductive. It is incubation. What the world calls absence, he knows as gestation. Sun Tzu again, victorious warriors win first and then go to war. Silence is the winning before the war, the inner alignment that ensures outer victory. This silence, however, must be intentional. Aimless withdrawal decays into irrelevance. Strategic silence ripens into potency. The Sigma calibrates. He does not vanish entirely, nor does he scatter endlessly. He chooses moments. Like a sniper, he waits. Like a sage, he speaks only when necessary. Like a commander, he measures the morale of his troops and times his words as rations, enough to sustain, never enough to weaken. And so silence becomes paradox, absence that amplifies presence, stillness that multiplies motion, invisibility that expands influence. In mastering silence, the Sigma is not mute, he is thunder waiting for the right strike. He is storm gathering power behind calm skies. He is force coiled in restraint. He embodies Sun Tzu's truth: the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Silence is the highest form of that art. By refusing to speak, he compels others to exhaust themselves, to guess, to falter. By silence, he conquers without clash. You and this lesson? Audit your relationship with silence. Do you fear it, filling every gap with noise, commentary, performance? Or do you wield it as power? Practice silence as strategy. In conversations, speak last. In conflict, pause before reply. In life, withdraw daily into wordless reflection. Let silence harden your focus, conceal your intent, sharpen your hearing. Refuse the slavery of constant broadcast. Become dark and impenetrable as night, so that when you move, you fall like thunder. In your silence lies the Sigma's secret arsenal, the power of the unspoken, which outlasts the loudest shout and outmaneuvers the noisiest foe. Chapter 31, The Sigma's Art of Endurance, The Long March. Endurance is the silent force that sustains all other virtues. Strategy, cunning, adaptability, even brilliance, these may win a battle, but endurance wins the war. Sun Tzu, in his counsel, warned of the dangers of prolonged campaigns, noting, "There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare." Yet his warning is not an argument against endurance itself, but against foolish persistence without aim. The Sigma understands the difference. To endure is not merely to last, it is to last with direction, to survive with integrity intact, to persist while still pressing closer to victory. Endurance is the art of outlasting opposition without losing shape, the discipline of being able to march longer, suffer deeper, and emerge stronger. The Sigma's path is not the sprint of the Alpha, who burns bright in bursts of conquest. Nor is it the idle drift of the Beta, who seeks only to be carried. It is the long march. It is the discipline of waking again and again, through seasons of obscurity, through winters of doubt, through landscapes of indifference. Where others collapse for want of recognition, the Sigma keeps moving because his fuel is not applause but principle. Sun Tzu wrote, "In war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak." Endurance applies this maxim in time. The Sigma avoids squandering himself in premature clashes. He withholds force, saves strength, and by simply continuing where others falter, he converts time itself into a weapon. Endurance reveals weakness in others long before it reveals weakness in the one who has trained himself for it. In endurance, the Sigma discovers that the battlefield is not just terrain, but the calendar. Consider the Valley Forge winter of George Washington's army. Cold, hunger, disease, they had every reason to collapse. Yet they endured, because endurance was not passive waiting, it was training, reorganizing, drilling in the snow. By the time spring came, the Continental Army had become an iron force, tempered by suffering. The Sigma sees in this not just historical anecdote but personal law. Suffering is not a signal to stop but a forge for strength, if one endures it with purpose. Musashi wrote, "Step by step, walk the 1,000-mile road." Endurance is precisely this. It is not glamorous. It is not the clash of swords in the spotlight. It is the endless repetition of forms, the hidden practice, the unseen miles. It is what separates the Sigma from the restless chasers of novelty. He knows that mastery is not a lightning strike, it is sediment layer by layer. He accepts boredom, embraces monotony, because he knows that the dull stone becomes the sharpest blade if ground long enough. The Stoics reinforced this truth. Marcus Aurelius noted, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke." Endurance is therefore not merely physical but interpretive. The Sigma learns to reframe hardship. What others call punishment, he calls training. What others call delay, he calls preparation. Endurance is not just bearing the load, it is redefining the load so that it strengthens rather than weakens. Endurance also requires conservation. To endure is not to expend everything at once. It is to pace. Sun Tzu observed, "When you engage in actual fighting, if victory is long in coming, then men's weapons will grow dull and their order will be damped." The Sigma therefore balances output and rest. He does not confuse endurance with recklessness. He knows that to march all day without pause is to collapse before nightfall. Endurance is intelligent persistence, bursts of energy timed with periods of recuperation, like a heartbeat, effort and recovery, effort and recovery. The historical record is full of those who triumphed by endurance. Xenophon and his 10,000, marching thousands of miles through hostile Persia, surviving not by brilliance but by endurance. Shackleton and his crew in the Antarctic, who endured cold and hunger beyond imagination, surviving where others perished because they refused to surrender spirit. Even the rise of empires, Rome, Britain, America, was less about single victories than about the ability to absorb losses, recover, and continue. The Sigma studies these, not as stories to admire, but as tactics to emulate. In modern life, endurance is not trenches and ice, but long projects, careers, relationships, creative pursuits. Most people start strong and fade. They launch a business, and when results do not come in months, they abandon it. They begin training, and after a plateau, they quit. They commit to study, and when mastery seems distant, they switch paths. Endurance is the separating line. The Sigma continues, adjusting but not abandoning. He knows that greatness compounds invisibly, like interest in silence, until suddenly the world calls it overnight success. Endurance also requires silence toward critics. Many will mock the unseen long march. They will say you waste your time, that you should pivot, that you should seek faster glory. But Sun Tzu cautioned, if you know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. The Sigma endures because he knows his aim. Mockery cannot move him. He has already calculated the worth of his road. The laughter of the short-sighted is nothing against the sight of the horizon. But endurance has enemies. Chief among them, despair. Despair whispers that the road is endless, that the march is futile. Here the Sigma deploys discipline of perception. He shortens his focus. He takes the next step. He reduces the infinite road to the immediate action. This is the Stoic prescription: do what is in your control now, and let the rest unfold. The long march is walked not in leaps but in steps. The digital age assaults endurance with constant distraction. Notifications fracture focus, media accelerates impatience, and everyone expects results overnight. The Sigma resists. He treats distraction as ambushes on the march. He ignores them, defends against them, continues walking. His endurance is not just in time but in attention. He can hold a line of thought for hours, a project for years, a mission for decades. That is why his results seem alien. Few in this age can sustain focus for more than minutes, let alone years. Endurance is also about resilience after defeat. To endure is not to avoid falling, it is to rise after each fall. Sun Tzu wrote, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity." Defeat is chaos. The Sigma endures by converting it into instruction. He extracts lesson, recalibrates, resumes. Where others see defeat as the end, he sees it as the forge of endurance. Each scar becomes another proof of survival, each failure another stone underfoot in the long march. Above all, endurance is faith, not blind faith in luck, but rational faith in the compounding of disciplined effort. It is the conviction that if you continue, you will outlast. Musashi endured countless duels not by chance but by unbroken training. Washington endured years of setback because he believed in the eventual exhaustion of Britain's will. Endurance is not passive. It is aggressive patience. It is the pressure applied by time, the steady weight that wears down the stone, the drip that carves the canyon. The Sigma, in his art of endurance, becomes like water in Sun Tzu's metaphor. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. He flows around obstacles, erodes mountains, fills valleys, and continues. Nothing halts him permanently. He does not need to win today. He needs only to not stop. And in not stopping, he becomes invincible. You and this lesson? Endurance is not a gift. It is built. To cultivate it, stop measuring progress only in miles completed, measure it in days continued. Refuse to be hurried by the impatience of others. Break the road into steps, and commit only to the step before you. Protect your energy with discipline, your focus with silence, and your spirit with perspective. Remember, the march is long, but it is not endless. Those who endure see horizons others never glimpse. In the Sigma's way, to endure is not merely to survive, it is to own time itself, to become unbroken, to reach the victories that only the long march reveals. Chapter 32, The Sigma's Art of Deception, the Unseen Hand. All warfare is based on deception. Sun Tzu opened the art of war with that maxim, and it has echoed through centuries of strategy, politics, and personal combat. Deception is not dishonesty in the shallow sense, it is the ability to shape perception, to bend expectation, to manipulate the field so that your opponent defeats himself. The Sigma does not wield deception as a cheap trick but as a refined art, the art of the unseen hand. In a world that worships visibility, transparency, and constant display, the Sigma withdraws into opacity. His movements are hidden, his intentions veiled, his actions cloaked until they strike like lightning. This concealment is not cowardice. It is mastery. Sun Tzu taught that the supreme strategist moves like water, adjusting form and flow, never revealing the shape until the strike. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend, march swiftly to places where you are not expected. Deception is movement in shadow, maneuver in silence. It is the ability to create false impressions so that opponents invest energy against ghosts while the true blow arrives unseen. The Sigma lives by this maxim. He understands that most of life is theater, and those who control the script control the outcome. By shaping perception, he dictates reality. Consider the general Hannibal at Cannae. Facing a Roman army that outnumbered his Carthaginian forces, Hannibal deployed a deceptive crescent formation. He placed his weakest troops in the center and instructed them to fall back slowly, drawing the Romans inward. The Romans, convinced of their superiority, pressed forward aggressively, only to find themselves enveloped as Hannibal's veteran troops closed from the flanks. The Roman army was annihilated not because Hannibal outmuscled them, but because he outmaneuvered their perception. He lured them into their own destruction. That is the essence of deception, to let others walk willingly into the trap you have designed. The Sigma applies this in modern arenas. In business, deception may be signaling weakness while quietly preparing strength, or letting competitors chase trends while he invests in fundamentals. In relationships, it may be declining to reveal full intentions until timing secures advantage. Online, it is anonymity, misdirection, or silence while others expose themselves recklessly. Deception is not malicious lying, it is strategic framing. It is refusing to give away your position while others broadcast theirs. Musasha, the sword saint, echoed this art in the Book of Five Rings. He wrote of feints, of showing one strike to deliver another, of confusing the enemy so that his defenses are misaligned. In battle, if you make your opponent flinch, you have already won. The Sigma embodies this principle not only in combat but in daily life. He uses controlled unpredictability. He cultivates mystery. He reveals little, shares little, and holds his cards close. His strength is not only in what he does, but in what others cannot see. Deception requires patience. The trap must be laid carefully. Sun Tzu wrote, "Hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder, and crush him." Most people cannot feign disorder. They are addicted to proving competence, to appearing flawless, to broadcasting confidence. The Sigma, however, understands the strength of disguise. He can appear weaker than he is, slower than he is, less committed than he is, because he knows that the moment of revelation will be decisive. He wastes no energy maintaining appearances. Instead, he cultivates invisibility until the strike. History is rich with the victories of deception. Washington's crossing of the Delaware was a masterstroke of concealment and timing. His army, exhausted and ill-equipped, could not match the British in open battle. But through secrecy, misdirection, and surprise, he struck a sleeping Hessian garrison and revived the morale of his revolution. Or consider Operation Fortitude in World War II, where Allied forces built fake armies of inflatable tanks and wooden aircraft to convince the Germans that the D-Day invasion would land at Calais rather than Normandy. Deception saved countless lives and ensured victory. The Sigma studies these examples not as curiosities but as models. He sees that the greatest victories are not always won by superior force but by superior design. The Sigma uses deception to guard sovereignty. In a world that demands constant exposure, he remains opaque. He does not reveal his moves until they are irreversible. He does not broadcast his goals until they are achieved. He may let others underestimate him, even dismiss him. This is a strategic mask. As Sun Tzu said, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. To be underestimated is to be armed with surprise. The Sigma cultivates that advantage relentlessly. Modern life offers countless traps for the unwary: social media oversharing, corporate transparency, endless commentary. Most people broadcast their strategies daily, their ambitions, their relationships, their vulnerabilities. They confuse visibility with power. The Sigma sees differently. He understands that power grows in shadow. Every disclosure is a surrender. Every unnecessary reveal is a leak in the fortress. Deception, then, is not merely a tactic but a lifestyle. It is the discipline of silence, the refusal to expose one's citadel. Stoicism too aligns with this art. Epictetus counseled, "Be silent for the most part, or speak only what is necessary." This silence is not emptiness but strength. It confuses adversaries. It preserves energy. It forces others to project their assumptions into the void you leave. Those assumptions are often wrong, and in their error lies your leverage. Deception often works not because you lied but because others deceived themselves in the vacuum you created. But deception also demands ethics. It is not manipulation for cruelty, nor dishonesty for petty gain. The Sigma's deception is never wasteful. It is precise, targeted, and proportional. It is deployed not to exploit the innocent but to protect sovereignty, to outmaneuver enemies, to win campaigns that matter. He does not live in deceit, he lives in strategic opacity. His truth is guarded, not abandoned. His deception is a shield and a sword, not a way of life. The discipline of deception requires training. One must practice withholding words, resisting the compulsion to broadcast, learning to mask intent. It means rehearsing false fronts and controlled reveals. It is the art of poker, the art of negotiation, the art of diplomacy. Consider the negotiator who never reveals his bottom line, who allows silence to unnerve the opponent, who masks urgency while conveying indifference. This is not lying. It is commanding perception. The Sigma masters this art. In the digital age, deception is perhaps more vital than ever. Algorithms study patterns, companies harvest data, adversaries map behavior. To remain predictable is to be controlled. The Sigma resists this by practicing digital deception, varying routines, masking habits, encrypting information, maintaining anonymity. He understands that to be legible is to be vulnerable. He cultivates opacity online just as a general cultivates camouflage in the field. Sun Tzu insisted, mystify, mislead, and surprise the enemy. The Sigma carries this maxim into his dealings. He misleads not with lies but with shadows. He mystifies not with complexity but with silence. He surprises by acting only when others believe him absent. His deception is total not because he fabricates endlessly, but because he reveals so little. In a culture that overshares compulsively, his restraint becomes indistinguishable from enigma. And enigma is power. Think of the Japanese concept of koge, the shadow. In martial traditions, the shadow strike is one the opponent does not see until it is too late. Deception is koge in life, moving unseen, striking without warning, shaping the field invisibly. The Sigma becomes koge. He becomes the shadow. But deception also involves self-deception. One must beware of believing one's own feints. Many generals have fallen into this trap, crafting elaborate deceptions that fooled themselves more than the enemy. The Sigma avoids this through constant clarity. He knows his own position, his own strength, his own limits. He does not lose himself in masks. He wears them, but he never becomes them. His deception is always anchored to truth. Endurance and deception often align. Sometimes the greatest deception is simply to endure silently while others exhaust themselves. The Sigma watches, waits, allows others to miscalculate, to reveal, to burn out. When they have spent their strength chasing illusions, he remains intact, ready to strike. Sun Tzu wrote, "The clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him." The Sigma imposes his will by shaping perception, by dictating terms, by deceiving the enemy into self-defeat. This is not an art that wins applause. Deception is not glamorous. It is not visible. It is silent architecture, invisible scaffolding, unseen currents. But it wins. And for the Sigma, victory is measured not in applause but in sovereignty preserved, objective secured, and freedom maintained. You and this lesson, practice deception by practicing silence. Reveal less than you know. Disclose less than you plan. Confuse with patience, not noise. Let others underestimate you. Allow them to project weakness onto you, while your strength remains hidden. When you strike, strike decisively, from the shadows, at the moment of your choosing. Remember Sun Tzu, attack him where he is unprepared, appear where you are not expected. That is the Sigma's art of deception, the unseen hand that shapes the battlefield without being grasped. Chapter 33, The Sigma's Last Lesson, The Silent Victory. Victory, in the mind of most men, is noisy. It is parades and headlines, applause and acclaim, banners raised and names remembered. It is conquest written in stone and sung in anthems. But the Sigma knows that the greatest victories are often invisible, silent, and unrecorded. They leave no statues, no monuments, no crowds. They are victories of sovereignty, of mastery over self, of freedom retained when all others are captured by systems, chains, or their own hunger for validation. The Sigma's last lesson is that the truest triumph is not conquest of others but liberation of the self. It is the victory that requires no witness. Sun Tzu begins the art of war by declaring, all warfare is based on deception. But by the end of his treatise, one realizes something deeper, the highest victory is the one that looks like nothing at all. The enemy is undone before the battle begins, so that no fight is necessary. What greater victory can there be than this, that you walk through the field unstained, that the enemy expends his strength in shadow boxing while you preserve yours? To win without battle, to achieve your ends without blood or spectacle, is the purest form of conquest. The Sigma embodies this. He does not need to be celebrated for the wars he avoids, the traps he slips, the chains he declines. His victory is silent. Musashi, at the end of his life, withdrew to a cave and wrote the Book of Five Rings. He did not die in a palace surrounded by riches or in an arena of duelists applauding his final match. He died alone, in simplicity, penning his wisdom in obscurity. And yet his way endures centuries later. His last victory was not over another swordsman but over the world's demand for him to keep fighting. He walked away undefeated because he mastered detachment. Silence was his final blade. The Sigma sees this and understands, to end without need for noise is the rarest triumph. Consider Washington, who after victory in the Revolution resigned his command and returned to private life. Kings could not comprehend it. Generals who won sought crowns, conquerors demanded empires. Washington left power behind. His victory was silent, he denied ambition the chance to enslave him. His greatness lay not in ruling but in relinquishing. The Sigma draws from this example. His last lesson is this: your truest victory is proven not by what you hold but by what you can walk away from without loss of self. Silence is a weapon. It disorients. It protects. It builds mystique. But in the final phase of the Sigma's journey, silence is not mere tactic, it is destiny. The world clamors for attention, for noise, for spectacle. To be silent is to be free. Sun Tzu taught, be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. What is soundlessness but silence? What is formlessness but the absence of ego's shape? The Sigma becomes untouchable by becoming silent. In silence, he cannot be attacked, for there is no target, he cannot be defeated, for there is no contest, he cannot be enslaved, for he does not present himself for capture. The silent victory is endurance through obscurity. History remembers Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, names drenched in glory and blood. But history also forgets the countless men who lived freely under their reigns by refusing to be absorbed into empire. Which of these were truly victorious, the conqueror who died poisoned, stabbed, or exiled, or the unknown man who lived free, sovereign, unbent, with family intact and spirit unbroken? The Sigma chooses the latter. His victory is not in being written into textbooks but in living a life unbound by the need to be written about at all. This silence is not cowardice. It is choice. The Sigma does not hide because he fears the world, he hides because he does not need it. Silence is his declaration of independence. To refuse applause is to refuse the leash that applause always conceals. Applause makes you its prisoner, you must keep earning it, louder and louder, until you are deaf to yourself. Silence ends the bargain. In silence, the Sigma's victory cannot be stolen, because it was never placed in the crowd's hands. Sun Tzu warns that battles wear down armies, consume treasuries, and corrode nations. The same is true of battles in life. Most men fight endlessly, against rivals, against neighbors, against themselves. They exhaust their years in noise, only to find at the end that they have conquered nothing enduring. The Sigma conserves. He withdraws. He lets others clash while he sharpens. His last victory is that when the noise ends and the dust settles, he remains whole, unscarred in essence, clear-eyed, untethered. Mandela's triumph was not the presidency of South Africa, though the world celebrated it. His truest victory was that he left prison without hatred devouring him. Hatred is noise, forgiveness is silence. In that silence, he gained a moral authority beyond armies. The Sigma sees this: your silent victories, invisible to the world, may be your most consequential. Modern life rewards noise. Social platforms thrive on constant broadcast. The loudest voice often drowns the most reasoned one. But the Sigma sidesteps this battlefield. He uses silence as filter and fortress. He does not explain, justify, or parade. He acts, then lets results stand unspoken. He invests, creates, withdraws, moves, while others chatter themselves into exhaustion. His victories accrue in silence, until one day they are undeniable, and by then he is beyond reach. Silence also creates unpredictability. A loud opponent reveals his intent. A silent one is unknowable. Sun Tzu taught, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." Darkness is silence. The Sigma is night, his movements unreadable, his intentions unfathomable, his strike sudden and final. His victory is silent thunder. But there is another layer. Silence is not only concealment. It is communion with the self. In silence, the Sigma hears his own strategy. The world drowns itself in chatter, mistaking noise for knowledge. But true insight requires stillness. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in silence. Musashi meditated in silence. Sun Tzu's wisdom was born of quiet observation of terrain, of armies, of weather. The Sigma enters silence not just to hide from the world but to hear the world more clearly. The silent victory is not flashy. It is not celebrated. It is lived. It is in waking free of debts of spirit. It is in living days designed by choice, not by chains. It is in walking away when others are shackled to thrones of glass. It is in preserving dignity when others auction theirs for applause. It is in stillness that endures when all noise dies. This is the last lesson. Victory is not what is seen. Victory is what remains when everything seen is stripped away. And so the Sigma concludes his campaign as he began it, not with conquest of others but with command of self. He is not a ruler, not a rebel, not a king, not a slave. He is a sovereign of silence. His last victory is invisible, and therefore eternal. You and this lesson? Understand this, your greatest victories will not be televised. They will not trend. They will not even be applauded. They will occur in the quiet of your own mind, in the discipline of your own choices, in the sovereignty of your own silence. Audit your life. How much of it is performed for noise, for display, for applause? Withdraw. Decline. Be silent. In silence, reclaim your time. In silence, hear your own compass. In silence, prepare strikes that need no warning. Build victories so silent they require no witness, so complete they require no retelling. The Sigma's last lesson is the eternal one: mastery of self, sovereignty of spirit, freedom from noise. Win this victory, and you will never be defeated, even if the world never knows your name. Epilogue: The Silent Path. Victory is often imagined as noise, banners raised, trumpets blaring, crowds cheering, enemies scattered. Yet the Sigma knows that the greatest victories arrive without spectacle. They arrive in silence, often invisible to all but the one who has endured the journey. The Alpha seeks applause, the Beta seeks comfort. The Sigma seeks neither. His triumph is inward, unannounced, secure. His path is the silent path, and it is this silence that makes it unbreakable. Sun Tzu closed his teachings with words that echo through centuries: to move swiftly, like the wind. To remain unseen, like the shadow. To strike like thunder, but be still as the forest. These are not instructions merely for the battlefield but for the whole of existence. The Sigma interprets them not as prescriptions for conquest of territory, but for conquest of the self. To move through life with speed and adaptability, to remain beyond the grasp of petty eyes, to strike only when decisive, and to stand firm when tested, this is the silent art of living. The path of the Sigma is not a rebellion against society, nor a retreat from it. It is something harder: participation without captivity. To walk among others without being owned by them. To take part in commerce, conversation, creation, yet remain sovereign, unchained. This balance requires strategy greater than any battlefield. For war is temporary, but life is a campaign unbroken until death. The Sigma adopts Sun Tzu's principle that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, and applies it to existence itself. His enemy is not always another person, but distraction, vanity, dependency, fear. To subdue these without endless struggle is mastery. Musashi, in his final writings, spoke of detachment. You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. And yet his own life revealed the harder truth: the Sigma's path is always solitary, even when surrounded by multitudes. Musashi fought 60 duels, undefeated, but his greatest lesson was not in swordplay but in withdrawal. He retreated to a cave, near the end of his life, to write the Book of 5 Rings. That act itself was a silent victory. He left behind not noise, but clarity. The Sigma too must learn this lesson, that withdrawal at the right time is not a retreat from battle, but the ultimate form of winning, walking away when there is nothing left to prove. Endurance has been the undercurrent of this manual. Sun Tzu warned that there is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. Yet he also implied that those who prepare for the long campaign can outlast those who fight for quick glory. The Sigma internalizes this paradox. Life will not reward those who burn brightly and vanish, it will reward those who can march silently through winters, setbacks, humiliations, deserts of obscurity, until the moment of decisive opening. Washington at Valley Forge endured hunger, cold, and doubt, but in that silence was forged a resolve that later birthed a nation. Endurance is silent power, and silence is endurance's language. But endurance must not be mistaken for passivity. The Sigma is not idle. He is patient. Patience is not waiting without action, it is acting without desperation. Sun Tzu counseled, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious." The Sigma lies in wait not for others, but for the timing of his own opportunities. He invests in skill long before reward, he cultivates health long before need, he saves resources long before crisis. When the test comes, he is already armed. Others scramble in panic, he advances in silence. There is also the silence of the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Sigma does not advertise his struggles nor parade his emotions. His citadel is inward, invisible. He does not require pity or recognition. He requires clarity. This silence is not repression, but sovereignty. Emotions are acknowledged, then positioned. Anger becomes fuel, fear becomes focus, solitude becomes strategy. Where others broadcast their turbulence, the Sigma builds still water. He moves unseen because he feels deeply yet reveals little. Deception, too, finds its highest form in silence. Sun Tzu declared, "All warfare is based on deception." But the greatest deception is not in tricks or false signals, it is in the quiet concealment of intent. The Sigma lives such that others cannot read him. His plans are opaque, his motives invisible, his moves unexpected. He does not boast before victories nor lament after defeats. His silence misleads without effort. People assume weakness where there is preparation, assume disinterest where there is hidden fire. When he finally moves, it feels to others like thunder from clear skies. And yet silence must be chosen, not stumbled into. It is tempting to fill the void with noise, to explain, to justify, to announce. But Sun Tzu urged, appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend, march swiftly to places where you are not expected. In modern life, the equivalent is to appear only where needed, only where decisive. The Sigma refrains from scattering his presence across every conversation, every platform, every arena. He appears only in arenas worthy of his effort, and disappears when noise would dilute his edge. Consider Mandela, who emerged from decades in prison not with endless speeches of bitterness but with strategic silence. He spoke when words could unify, withheld when words could inflame. That silence carried more authority than slogans. Or George Washington, who surrendered power at the height of victory, choosing the silence of retirement over the noise of kingship. These men illustrate that silence can achieve what armies cannot. It preserves dignity, it disarms adversaries, it anchors legacy. The Sigma's silent path is not the absence of sound, but the presence of control. It is sound chosen, timing mastered, appearances calculated. It is silence as weapon, silence as shield, silence as the final proof that mastery requires no validation. The epilogue is not an ending but a reminder, the path is endless. Sun Tzu's wisdom, Musashi's solitude, Marcus Aurelius's meditations, they were never meant as finalities, but as compasses. The Sigma does not graduate from sovereignty, he practices it daily. He does not finish the art of withdrawal, he sharpens it continually. He does not conquer once, he conquers each day, quietly, invisibly, with no witnesses but himself. And so, as this manual closes, understand that it is not closure but opening. You are now armed not with instructions, but with principles. Principles do not expire. They endure, as silence endures. The Sigma's art of war is not in noise, nor in applause, nor in conquest of others. It is in mastery of self, endurance of path, sovereignty of soul. It is in victory so complete that nothing needs to be said. This is the Sigma's last gift, that you need not declare, need not prove, need not conquer visibly. You need only walk the silent path with discipline, and in that silence, you will be unconquerable. You and this lesson? Withdraw into your silence. Audit the noise that drains you, conversations without value, arguments without end, validations without substance. Cut them. Build silence around your aims. In that silence, cultivate skill, strength, clarity. Do not chase applause. Let your victories arrive unseen, like the dawn, inevitable, undeniable, unannounced. Let silence be your fortress, your strategy, your art of war. For when the world looks and finds nothing to seize, you will already have won. This is the end of Part 5, the Sigma's Art of War series finale. Check out Sigma Masterclass Brutal Truths and Strategies podcast, if you haven't already done so, and thanks for listening.